Good morning. Thanks for the intro there, Robin. First of all, just like to say thanks to Glintech for hosting the event and obviously inviting Puppet to come along and speak. And thank you to Atlassian for hosting us in these really nice facilities. So today I'm here to talk to you about the journey to pervasive automation and DevOps and what that means for your organization. So we're going to look at three key things. We're going to look at automation and DevOps, whether they're one and the same, some interesting outcomes with DevOps from the State of DevOps report, and being on the road to DevOps. So automation and DevOps, are they one and the same thing? Show of hands, who thinks they are the same? That's good. Don't have to go through too much of an explanation then. Obviously, we started automating in the first instances in IT to reduce the amount of mundane tasks that we go through and do. All those things that you had to repeat 1,000 times over, whether it's provisioning a new host, whether it's provisioning a share for a new business unit. That's a lot of the challenges that I had when I first started in IT. How do I actually make my job more enjoyable and reduce the amount of times I've got to get up at 3 AM to reprovision a volume because it's full? But what about DevOps? What does DevOps actually mean? And so at Puppet, we help dev and operations teams ship, build, deploy applications, and manage the infrastructure that underlies them. But what does that actually mean for everyone else? What actually happens when you start doing DevOps? So DevOps is great in that it's starting to help us break down the silos between all of our IT teams. So whether you're a dev, whether you're ops, whether you're security, whether you're in auditing, change management, DevOps helps us break down those silos and start being more collaborative in how we actually interact with our IT infrastructure and any of the applications that we go through and support. But where did DevOps actually come from? How did we get to where we are today? So if we take a look at some of the big companies in the world, the Googles, the Spotifys, the Facebooks, they're essentially born in the age of the internet. They were born in the cloud. And we can learn from what they've actually done and how they've actually set a really high standard and a really high bar on what we're actually able to achieve and deliver with software in itself. When you look at someone like Google or Facebook, how much they're actually delivering during the day. Google's able to push out updates to any of their app stack during the middle of the day. You can log onto Google Inbox today and find out there's a new version, please refresh. They don't have to go through this rigorous change management process and all these controls that we're used to. They're able to do all this on the fly. It's giving them the ability to be agile, that ability to be flexible and scale infinitely within their own environments. So where do they actually start with all this? If we take a look at the history of where we've actually come from IT, we started out with physical infrastructure in the first instances. We began putting databases on them. We've put a single application. We had a single server for a single purpose. And over time, as Moore's Law helped us scale with processing power and the likes, we started realizing that we were inefficiently using the resources that we had given. At any one time, the most processing power a machine would be using would be 10% of its capacity. But we needed to make sure that we had all the growth there in case something had to burst out into that environment. And so once we realized that we needed to reuse it more efficiently, we started looking at virtualization. We took the first big step in IT. And once we started virtualizing, we added another layer of complexity to what we have. And so not only were we having to manage a physical environment, we now had to manage a virtual one as well. And again, as time's progressed in recent years, we've seen a push towards leveraging the economies of scale that virtualization has been able to deliver. And we started looking at the cloud. People started becoming cloud providers. People started building their own private clouds and leveraging those economies of scale and how they were more efficiently able to move and be agile within their IT. But again, this has added another layer of complexity to that environment. And in the last couple of years, we've seen a really big shift towards containers and containerized applications and serverless. And again, we've seen another layer of complexity gone through. And so we can see through the history of what we've kind of done and how we've progressed in IT is that it's not getting any easier. The complexity is growing every single day. So whatever comes next, whether it's going to be more serverless, containerized applications, or it's going to be cloudless, whoever knows what it'll be, we can be sure that it's only going to add complexity. It's not actually going to reduce any of that for us. And so what the big companies have been able to do, those born in the cloud, and how they've been able to move with so much agility and flexibility, is that they automated. They abstracted away that complexity at every single layer within their environment. And this started the journey to what we know as DevOps today. So the one thing that they do really, really well is they deliver better software faster. They do it faster than any of us can, just through the scale of what they can accomplish. And as companies and as practitioners, we need to be able to be like them. We want to be able to ship and deploy our applications, our software, faster within what we do. And so the foundation of DevOps is automation. Automation is what gives you that ability to abstract out that complexity, give you that flexibility, and allow you to move with your IT. And DevOps is what those companies are doing, and that's what's allowing them to move so fast in the world. But how do you know that you're actually doing DevOps, or if you're doing DevOps, are you doing it successfully? So we had 4 key metrics to have a look at. First one being, how frequently are you able to deploy? How short your lead times are? How fast it takes for you to recover? And then also what your change failure rates are looking like. So that's great. What does that all actually mean to us? And so when we look at high-performing teams versus a low-performing IT team, we're seeing 46 times more deployments, 440 times shorter lead times, 96 times faster times to recover, and 5 times lower change rates. So how does that actually help us? Well, being able to deploy and being able to do that really, really quickly is helping you run more efficiently in your environment. Having a faster time to recover and less failures when you go through and change is allowing you to grow and transform at a fast rate. You're actually able to now do things in a reliable, efficient manner. So why do we actually care about all of this? First of all, it improves your customer experience. Whether you have external-facing customers or whether those customers are internally facing to you, you want to improve the experience of what they have. You want to be able to deliver, like the Googles and the Spotifys will, be able to deliver infrastructure, deliver applications at will, and not have to worry about having a 30-day time to provision a single VM. You've got to be able to answer competitive threats as well. You don't want to be lagging behind because your infrastructure or your IT takes too long to go through and adapt to what's out there. And you want to be able to realize new business strategies. A lot of the customers that we're talking to today are starting to begin on digital transformation, and they're starting to look at moving their legacy on-prem environments to things such as moving to the cloud, hybrid clouds. We want to do containers. And being able to do DevOps allows you to go through and leverage all these technologies and make things happen faster for you. You're able to adapt. If you want to go through and be in AWS one day, but next day you want to be in Azure, DevOps allows you to go through and do that. So how do we actually know all this? Well, let's have a look at some of the outcomes from the State of DevOps report. So the State of DevOps report, we've combined with Atlassian, AWS, Deloitte, Dora, to go through and create the State of DevOps report. And this is obviously the authority on everything to do with DevOps. So we've run this, I think, for the last 7 years. We've had over 27,000 contributions. It's available to download at the Puppet website. Feel free to jump on there and have a look. But there were some key things that really came out of the State of DevOps report. And one of those was that high-performing teams continue to achieve faster throughput and better stability. What does that actually mean for them? It means that they're delivering their code, they're shipping it faster, they're able to do it reliably over and over again. Automation is a huge boon to organizations. I don't think anyone can refute that. Automation is starting to give us time back so that we can actually focus on the things that are actually important to us. Our IT teams don't have to spend countless hours in the middle of the night trying to fight fires because of a change in configuration that no one actually knew about. So automation is removing the human element from what we're actually doing and helping us move faster in the world. DevOps doesn't apply just to one organization, it applies to everyone. Everyone can go through in DevOps. It doesn't matter whether you're a 2-man team or a 2,000-man team. DevOps is key. DevOps is what is going to allow you to have that agility, the flexibility, the scalability to go through and be better at your IT. But one of the things that we've seen, one of the important things that we saw in the State of DevOps report is that although people were automating, although people had started down their journey towards DevOps, is that it was happening in isolation. And so traditionally what we've gone through and seen is that in particular areas that they would have automated their cloud infrastructure, but the legacy on-prem is still untouched. No one wants to touch that IIX box. No one wants to touch that Solaris 3 box. No one even knows what it does. We've seen it happen across application services and across the platforms. People are able to stand up platforms really quickly. You know what, we need to spin up a new DB cluster? That's great, we can do that. But we're still waiting on the underlying infrastructure to come through. We're still actually waiting for the dev teams to be able to ready to be shipped their applications on top of that. And then again, we've seen it with traditional applications and also containerized. And particularly in the containerized space, we're starting to see more and more people automate. You know, we have people like Google, again, with their containers and Kubernetes and their ability to infinitely scale at will. When we look at a lot of the companies that we've been helping with at Puppet, and so here's some of the ones that are actually on the journey to DevOps. They're not 100% automated. They might not have automated broadly and deeply across their organization, but they've started on that track. And here's some of the examples of, I guess, what we've helped them achieve. So G&S Science is one of our customers based out in New Zealand. And one of the key things that we've actually able to help them do was accelerate their migration to the cloud. Being able to define their infrastructure as code has allowed them to be able to, again, shift between being on-prem, AWS, Azure with ease. They don't have to worry about writing something specific for each cloud. They've got everything defined in a generic infrastructure as code, and that is very portable across what they're actually doing. Reducing their recovery time to minutes, that ability to go through and build hosts at will very, very rapidly because they don't have to go through manual steps. Everything that they have is automated in their environment. And reducing the number of changes due to configuration drift. So this is one of the things that I used to struggle with when I was a sysadmin, was managing a fleet of 100 servers. Someone turns off SNMP. What the hell happened? Why did that happen? No one raised a proper change for it. Someone turned it off during the middle of the day. And this is where tools such as infrastructure as code and modeling a desired state with your infrastructure is really handy in that you're remediating all that kind of drift. And this is what allowing people to go through and have reduced changes. And obviously, in terms of that, they're obviously deploying applications within their environment. And this is where they've also been able to reduce the application time from days down to minutes. So we're not talking about small scales of time here. We're talking very large, very, very rapid. It's allowing them to move with agility within there. And in terms of being able to go through and deploy through a test, dev, UAT, whatever environment they need to go through and spin up or spin down, they're able to do that very, very quickly. So Hitchcock's is one of our customers in the UK. And this is probably a little bit of a different look rather than having hard metrics on times to deploy and the like. But one of the big things was that they're able to reduce the number of staff involved in their release process by 75%. And that's also helped them reduce the time to deploy by 89%. And this has made it so that whenever they release a major application, there's a 97% reduction in the original cost of what they were doing. 97%. Also do cool companies like Sony PlayStation, helping them reduce the amount of time that they spend releasing products to the world. How much time it takes for them to go through and provision a new service. Being able to scale their management within their infrastructure teams. Automation that gives them that ability to go from managing one person per 100 nodes. You can now have one person managing 1,000 nodes. And then we have GitHub, the largest code repository in the world. I think it's 57 million repositories. And they're very, very heavy with DevOps and very synonymous with code, obviously. So we're helping them in the way they go through and deploy their infrastructure in their environment. So I guess, the summary, what we've actually learned. So let's go back to what we kind of started with at the beginning of the day, and that whether automation and DevOps, are they one and the same? Some of the outcomes from the State of DevOps report and people that are all companies that are on the journey towards DevOps. So I think it's safe to say that automation is the foundation of DevOps. DevOps is a big shift in the culture of how we actually do our operations. We're no longer tied into the traditional ITIL frameworks of the 80s and the 90s and huge service management chains and trying to push something through change management daily. DevOps is breaking down those silos. And DevOps is not just automation, it's the tooling, it's the practices, it's the culture that goes with the big shift. And so what we saw from the State of DevOps report is that many organizations actually have the foundations of good DevOps. They've started out there, they're on their way. And like I said, many organizations, they are on the way to DevOps, but they're only seeing it in small success at this point. You can only move as fast as your slowest moving part. So if your infrastructure team has fully automated, but your cloud still isn't, or your application guys still aren't ready, you can only move as fast as what they want to be able to go through and deploy. So next steps. I guess today as thought leaders and practitioners within IT, I implore you to go back to your organizations, look at what you're actually doing. Have you actually pervasively automated? Are you doing DevOps just in one team? Do you need to look at the bigger picture and see how you can collaborate, how you can get DevOps across your entire organization and allow your entire organization to move as fast as they want to? So from a Puppet perspective, what we're actually doing in the world today is that we are helping customers discover what they know, control, manage it, provision it, and then we're also helping the apps teams go through and deliver on all these as well. So as you guys are on your journey towards automation and DevOps, whether you're just starting out, whether you're 90% of the way through, feel free, come have a chat to one of us. I've got some of the Puppet team here. You've obviously got Glintech and everyone else around to leverage off as well. And that brings it up for my part of the talk.
Does anyone want to do question and answer after each section rather than doing one big one at the end? Has anyone got any questions that they'd like to kick off?
I don't have the full details. I can provide those. They are a public reference for us. We are actually able to give that and so you're able to talk to them as well, but I'm not 100% sure on the full metrics in that regard. I've never seen anyone adopt DevOps in a week. The process is relatively, I don't want to say relatively long, but it's not something that you just start out and say, right, we're going to automate across everything. It does take time. And so the average time I would say is, sort of 6 to 2 years for people to start adopting those practices and getting people to have that buy-in. And it is a big cultural shift in what it is. I guess what I see a lot today is that the people are still very siloed. The Windows team still don't talk to Linux. The devs still don't talk to infrastructure. So the first step is starting small, starting with one team and then starting to scale out from that and getting different involvement from different teams. And I think when you look at the companies that have been successful with DevOps, that's one of the things that is key, is that they did start small and they started to spread their feelers out through the rest of the organization. And as they started seeing the success for that team, then they wanted to buy into that and say, actually, we want to be a part of that. We think that we can also move faster with you as well. Yeah, in terms of the overall culture and I guess the shift from dev, so I came from a really heavy infrastructure background and I spent a lot of time automating out my infrastructure because, well, I didn't want to have to spend that much time actually looking at it. So in terms of the practices, I guess, from an infrastructure perspective, is you want to be able to move, I guess, as fast as Agile kind of allows you to go through. Whether you want to go through and do a 2-week sprint, you can start learning from what the devs do in their space and that they're doing a 2-week sprint. What if we were actually to apply that to our infrastructure? What if we were able to roll the changes in the same manner? And I guess that's where you start breaking down the cultures. And obviously there's the business case in that you don't want infrastructure to be waiting on dev or dev to be waiting on infrastructure when anything goes through and occurs. So you need to actually start marrying the two together and get the two to collaborate. One of the things that I'm big on in terms of collaboration and seeing customers go through and do is that actually allowing your devs, not having the traditional really big walled siloed in that you can actually start with automation, and a lot of things that we do with Puppet is allowing the people to go through and make those changes. So the devs say, actually, you know what, I need a different version of Tomcat in my environment. What's my traditional process of that? Right, I've got to go through infrastructure, I've got to get them to make a change, I've got to raise a change request to go through and do that. Oh, I've got to need that across 7 different environments because that's what I need. So being able to just say, right, actually, you know what, I can implement that through code. I can raise a simple pull request and have that implemented tomorrow. I can have that implemented in 5 minutes. So that's where I see the big shift in the culture, is that you start taking the mentality from each side and picking the best of breed and then going, yep, that's how we want to move forward. So there isn't any set way or any set practice saying you need to be doing Agile to go through and do DevOps. It definitely is part of the practice though. I don't see DevOps as being as replacement for ITIL. I see the two working in conjunction together. ITIL is very good at setting, I guess, that framework around service ownership, service management, and how you kind of need to structure some things out. But I guess as we've kind of moved into the 21st century of IT, is that we found that that structure doesn't necessarily facilitate movement. I used to work for a bank where it took us something like 30 days to provision a VM. If you wanted to raise a newer service account, good luck on that. You can wait 3 months for the approval process to go through. And so I feel that DevOps helps you in that regards, and that you can start going to change managers and saying, actually, you know what, I'm going to implement a change. Here's what my infrastructure looks like now. I've got it defined in code. Here's all the things that it actually matches. Here's the changes that we're going to make. And being able to execute that and say, well, actually, I don't have to do my change in a change window anymore. I can go through and roll that out at 12 o'clock today, because in the previous 6 weeks leading up to this point, we've done all the requisite testing. We've done everything that we need to do to actually prove that this is going to be successful. And so you start breaking down those barriers and you start seeing that actually the two can work together and they don't have to be mutually exclusive.